In this video, we're going to talk about how to do a past year review. When you intentionally reflect, life just seems to get better, but we're all out here resisting intentional reflection. We might be self-analyzing ourselves in our head on the regular, but we're rarely sitting down and being like, what is the most helpful way to learn from and look at my past? So in this video, I'm going to move through a really simple past year review, yearly reflection session. You can follow along with me. It's going to be really personal and really chit-chatty. This is very much like my once a year, once every 6 months, intense life update. And we always kick off with the classic feel-good question of what are your wins and what has worked? The reason we start here is because reflecting on your wins just feels good. And even if you're sitting there like, I don't have any wins, you do. Once you start actually writing, you'll think of some. Your wins can be as small as you got your car serviced this year, or they can be that you bought your dream house. It doesn't matter, they all fit into the wins category. My recent wins are kind of obvious. I launched my podcast, Grow With Intention. For some reason with YouTube, while I love the platform, I really do think too much about the algorithm. Like my head is always, oh, I can't make that video that I really want to make because I just know it's not going to perform well. And like obviously the barriers that are on YouTube are fake. They're in my mind. I can make whatever I want and put it on YouTube. My videos don't have to perform well, but there's something about a podcast that feels a little bit more flexible and free. I think it's because you can't see the view count, you can't see the likes, you don't get all those notifications like you do on YouTube where YouTube is like, your video isn't performing well, this is the worst video that you've made out of the last 10 videos, which if you're a YouTuber, you know what I mean. It just gives you this sense of pressure of like, I need to perform. Whereas with podcasts, that just feels a little less pressury. And I just feel so excited about the content that I want to make for Grow With Intention. I feel like I'm just filled with ideas of things that I want to talk about that I wouldn't necessarily usually make a YouTube video about. So yes, that was my first win. I launched the Life Map 2.0. This is something I've been meaning to do for a while. If you've followed me for ages, you know I had the Life Map physical. It really didn't take me long after launching the Life Map to realize that having an e-commerce shop with physical products isn't a good fit for me. Managing the stock and managing returns, that's just not my area of genius. And I could hire a team, but I'm just not someone that really wants to have a big team behind me. And also on the other hand, because digital products don't cost me anything to produce, I actually make more from digital products than I ever did from my physical products. They sold well, but they cost a lot to produce. And it just made sense to go down the digital avenue. So I created the Life Map 2.0, which is my goal setting workbook. I feel like so many of my ideas around goal setting and even productivity have changed so much just in the last like 2 to 3 years. Like significantly they have shifted. And I'm still integrating into sort of my new perspectives and approaches to things, but I feel like the Life Map 2.0 encapsulates a lot of that really nicely. Win number 3, at the start of the year, I organized my very first meetup, and then I organized 3 little community meetups. The first meetup was like a little monthly review for the muchelleb community that live on the Gold Coast, which there are not many of you. Most of you guys came from Brisbane. You're incredible. Thank you for coming. That made me feel very loved. It went pretty well. There are things I look back and I'm like, wow, you could have done that differently, but we live and we learn. And then I hosted podcast chats in the park, which is kind of like a book club, but for podcasts. When I went to do my very first meetup, I was so nervous. I felt like I was taking the biggest step out of my comfort zone. I was like, wow, I can't believe that I'm doing this. And now that I have hosted a few little community meetups, I'm so, I don't want to say desensitized, but I'm so much more chill and relaxed about the idea of hosting a meetup. Weirdly, hosting a community meetup, like with my YouTube community, feels more intimidating to me than hosting like a meetup for random people. Because you guys have an idea of like who I am. You have a concept of me built in your head, and what if I don't live up to that concept? So that's a little more pressury. However, the idea of just hosting a community meetup that anyone could attend, I feel super chill about. And that's a change that I never foresaw happening. If you follow my journey for a while, I've talked about social anxiety and managing that. And I truly was so terrified about the idea of an in-person thing. And I don't want to say that it was effortless, like it definitely wasn't. I am the queen of self-imposed exposure therapy, and that was just part of that. But it really only took me a few times of doing it to be like, oh, I can do this. I'm making a whole episode about social anxiety on my podcast. I'll be releasing that soon. But one of the worst pieces of advice, but also best pieces of advice when it comes to social anxiety is like, you really do have to put yourself out there and do things that make you uncomfortable. And once you do it enough and you have a safe corrective experience, things will shift in your mind. And that's what happened there. I have worked out more this year than I ever have in my life. And I've always had like a workout habit, but it's always been very on and off. Like I've had long stretches without exercising, and then I'll get back to it. I'm making a whole video soon about how to keep up a workout habit in the next year. But I feel like this year I have worked out more consistently than I ever have before. And it's not that I don't have bad weeks or bad days, but I always know that I'm going to get back to it, and that is just like a really nice, safe feeling. The next win, what I would count as a win, is me entering my community era. I made a whole podcast episode on this if you're like, yes, I also want to build my community, create new friendships, bring in new relationships into my life. It's the podcast episode I wish that I could have heard, because I have given this a half-assed go a few times throughout my 20s. And I've been like, yeah, I'm going to go meet new people, but then I've been like, man, meeting new people is hard. And I've kind of given up. But this year I was like, I'm going to give it a real shot. I'm going to give it a proper crack. And I have. And I also want to continue it. Like in 2024, I want to keep at my community era. I really want to keep on just expanding my connections. I talked about this in my vision board video, I think last year, about how I feel like I have some really close, like strong ties with a lot of psychological safety in my life. And I'm so lucky for that. But I felt like I was missing weak ties and like looser connections. And I do want to build like, you know, more of those really tight, deeply psychologically safe friendships as well. Like, of course, if things grow that way, of course, I'll take it. But I've kind of just been focused on putting myself in front of as many new people as possible, seeing people consistently, and then just seeing where things go. And it's been so nice. I was saying to Luke not long ago, I feel like this year has just been so gratitude filled. Like I've just had so many moments where I don't know how to put it. It's almost like a moment of shock, but the opposite of shock. I'll just be sitting there and being like, oh my God, like I am so lucky and I am so grateful to have what I have in my life. I don't know if that's related to building community and building these connections, but I've definitely had that moment a few times about like the connections that I've been able to build. I just feel so like grateful. But just in general, this year has just been a very gratitude filled year. It's been a very feel-good year. Now I want to talk about what has worked. Because even if you don't have like big, huge wins in this year, maybe it was a pretty like average year, there's going to be some things that you tried out, things that you did differently, new things that you tried that worked. And it's really helpful to reflect on the things that are working to sort of encourage yourself to do more of those things. The first thing that has been really working for me this year has been less pre-event rumination and less post-event rumination. For most things in my life, I'm pretty good at not ruminating pre-event, like not pre-worrying about stuff. It's only after the fact that I'm like, what did I do? What did I say? What do they think of me? And I talked to a therapist about this last year, and they honestly did not have many suggestions for me when it came to this kind of thing. One therapist was like, you know what you need to do? You need to get projects, bring more projects into your life. And I was like, I am a project queen. Not that I didn't take the advice, like I do my homework and I tried, but that didn't really do it for me. I did change therapists because the first therapist just didn't have anything that was quite doing it for me. Not that she wasn't lovely, she was great. My next therapist was like, what you need to do is just like journal it all out and like keep on journaling about the same things that you ruminate on, and that will really help. And it just didn't do it. What has worked for me has been metacognitive therapy techniques. After going to therapy, and this happened like last year, and not having it help me at all. Like I finished therapy and I was like, damn, I feel worse. I really decided I'm going to go on a little self-therapy journey. And all metacognitive therapy focuses on is managing your attention. It's saying, hey, if unhelpful thoughts come your way, you don't actually need to sit there and ruminate on them. You can move your attention elsewhere while they exist in the background. You don't need to give them all of your attention. If you're like, I want to know more, I made a video called 5 Happiness Habits or something like that. I made it recently. And I truly feel like because of those ideas, I am at my most content right now. I'm not always happy, but I don't think that's the point. I'm just more generally content. The next, a bit more tangible thing that I did that has been working has been giving up Netflix. I did this like 3 months ago. I got to a point where I was like, I have all these projects on my plate. I waste too much time on Netflix. I'm just gonna stop watching it. My exceptions are I am allowed to watch movies. I'm not a movie watcher. Like it's very rare that I'm like, you know what I want to do? Watch a movie. I'm much more of a TV gal. I don't know why, but those two things are so different to me. I can binge a TV show, but I can pass on a movie any day. And the other exception is I can watch whatever I want if Luke is there or another person is watching with me. This little decision has been game-changing. I love it. I don't think that I'm gonna go back to watching TV in 2024. Another weird thing that has actually been really working for me has been descriptive praise. I read a book called Calmer, Easier, Happier Parenting. I'm trying to become a better aunt. There's no baby on the way, and there probably won't be for quite a while, but I do want to be a good aunt. And in 2 of the parenting books that I read, they talked about this idea of descriptive praise. For example, your child pats your cat really aggressively, and you're trying to get them to pat the cat in a more gentle way so that your cat doesn't feel terrorized. When you see your kid patting your cat really gently, you just know, oh, I can see that you're patting the cat really gently. That's thoughtfulness, or something along those lines. Anyways, I have been practicing descriptive praise on my nieces, and it's actually been really helpful. It made me feel better about our relationship more than anything, because I'm constantly looking for the good. But I practiced it so much that my little neural pathways for descriptive praise are so built up. I literally now go throughout my days descriptive praising myself. And honestly, it's a bop. I would really recommend it to anyone. So I'll be going about my day and I'll be like, wow, you just got out of bed even though you really didn't feel like it. That's persistence. I've actually never really been one for positive self-talk, like people being like, you know, tell yourself that you're amazing and you're incredible. It's just never worked for me. But objectively observing my actions and being like, oh, I did that. And that is persistence. Like, you can't really argue with it because it's reality. I'd highly recommend it. The next thing that has been really weirdly working for me, and I'm gonna actually trigger warning because I am talking about diets and eating, potentially weight loss. If you have a difficult relationship with eating and food, just skip to the next section. This year I gained weight, and gaining weight is normal and natural and fine, but I knew that I was overeating. However, I wasn't interested in dieting literally at all. I have watched my beautiful mom, who will probably be watching this, diet throughout my entire life. She has been on every single diet you could imagine. And I've seen friends do this as well as people I've worked with. I've actually never seen a single person go on a super restrictive diet and have success with it long term. And I've tried calorie restricting in the past, like every single woman on the planet, unfortunately. And I found that when I've calorie restricted, I have gotten really over it really quick. I've felt like I'm restricting and I've rebelled. Anyways, what I'm getting to is I ended up picking up a book called Diets Don't Work. Quite literally went into Amazon and I was like, diets don't work. Surely someone has written this book, because diets rarely do work. Like, the success rate is really low. And I came across this book called Diets Don't Work. And I keep on saying to Luke, it's like, since reading that book, a switch has flicked in my brain. I didn't have very much weight to lose. I just knew that my relationship with eating wasn't feeling very good. But I've still lost a few kilos, and I lost them like effortlessly without any restriction. It was simply a matter of noticing the fact that I was overeating. I'd also been trying the mindful eating thing up to that, but there was something about this book that just made something switch in my brain. I feel like I have a much healthier relationship with food than before. It's probably a little bit more in line with intuitive eating, and it's a good fit for people who feel like they do overeat. All I know is it's working for me. Now let's talk about woes and what hasn't worked. So these are the if-onlys, but we're not going to frame them as if-onlys, we're going to frame them as lessons. In the book, The Power of Regret, the author talks about how the central finding when it comes to regrets is that they can deepen persistence and they almost always improve performance. Obviously, regrets aren't helpful if you linger on them. We don't want to be lingering on things that we could have done better, but just noting them and learning from them can be really helpful. So my first woe has to do with my branding. My branding this year has been an absolute shit show. If you've been paying attention, you will have seen that I'm confused. And as a result, you're probably confused and we're all confused. I actually don't have a resolution to this. This year, I've been like, I'm gonna try and figure out my style, because I feel like my personal style has changed like a lot. In the past like year and a bit, I've still got the minimal thing-ish going on, but I've moved into so much more color and lightness and like just a more happy energy when it comes to my colors. And I feel like that's very reflective of like my mental state too. And so I've been trying to like shift my branding to line up with where I am now, but I just haven't been able to do it. I think for the next year, I just need to spend some time really finding my style. I feel like I've got my personal style kind of down. Like, I don't feel confused about it in any way. I feel pretty good about what I'm wearing, but I want that to translate to my branding online. I just can't quite figure it out. And I keep on going like, oh, I really like this. That's what I want to do. And then I realize that I do really like that. But it's kind of like when you go into a store and you look at a dress and you're like, oh my God, that's so cute. I love it. And then you put it on and you're like, oh, but it's not for me. I feel like that's what I've been doing with my branding. I look at other people's branding and like examples on Pinterest and I'm like, beautiful, stunning. That's exactly what I want. And then when it actually gets applied, I'm like, oh, I hate it. So that is something that I want to focus on in 2024. But I just think a lot of it is about like letting my branding germinate in my head and letting myself mull over it. Because I feel like this year I've been like trying to push and find my branding and that hasn't been working. So I'm like, let's try this. I've talked about the next woe a little bit in my vision boarding video. I feel like this year has just not been a calm content creator year. And I truly think the reason for that has been because I've had so many shoulds when it comes to my content. I'm thinking a lot about the sponsors that I'm working with, and don't get me wrong, I actually love the sponsors that I've worked with. They're all great and wonderful. But sometimes it can make me feel like I'm like forcing content. And I sort of talked about this earlier in the video, but I guess where I'm leaning towards this year is leaning into content that feels good to make, even if it doesn't perform very well. I think I will start uploading my podcast episodes onto YouTube, which are longer and probably will not get as many clicks or views. And I just need to be comfortable and okay with that. I've watched this really like interesting phenomenon play out in the last few years where all of these people who I've really admired and I've been like, wow, like they really like know what they're doing and they're clearly so successful and they must just like be thriving. I've watched them all just like slowly, like if not totally topple over and come out and be like, actually, I'm really unhappy. They've come out and been like, I'm actually like not enjoying what I'm doing. And it's really put things into perspective for me and made me go, okay, I really need to focus more on what I want to be doing so that I don't build a life for myself that I despise. And I have been good at that. Like there have been a few things that I've intentionally not done. Like I haven't built a team because I know that if I had a team to manage, that would just not be a fun time for me. I closed down Life Map Collective because I was like, I do not want physical products. I don't want to manage logistics. So I have been quite intentional in those choices. But even still, when it comes to the content that I create, I just feel like there is a strong part of me that's like, do what performs, not what feels fun and enjoyable. I watched Ali Abdaal's recent video. I never usually watch other YouTubers' videos. I try to steer away because I'm too scared that I'm going to accidentally plagiarize their content. That freaks me out. And he was talking about how he's going to stop doing so many sponsorships and only make content when he wants to make content, and how he's at a point where he's earning enough that that is a choice that he can make. I'm not at that stage yet. I'm not earning millions. But it really made me think about how I could supplement my income without relying so much on sponsors, so that if I did want to get to the point one day where I was like, I don't want to take on so many sponsors, that was totally possible and doable for me. And I think there are two parts of that. Firstly, improving the products that I have that already exist. I know that you guys love the Life Map. That sells really well. You guys like the Life Map. I have my Notion pack, which is great. It definitely needs an update. And I also have my Grow with Intention app, which I honestly think is amazing, but I do think could be made even better. But in this year coming, I do think it's just going to be focused on product improvement and also just like launching a lot more products, seeing what performs well and doubling down on the things that do perform well. So if you see me talking more about my own products in the coming year versus talking about sponsorships, which I feel is maybe a more pleasant experience for you guys. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. And I don't need like a crazy income. I've never really needed that. I'd like a good income for sure. But more than that, I really want to feel a lot of freedom and contentment in my days. That's my main thing. If I can create an income that doesn't rely on other people and is more reliant on my own products, that lets me live a pretty feel-good, content-filled life, I will be happy. One thing I really didn't do well this year was fun. And my theme this year was feel good, enjoy, have fun. Feel good, I feel like I really tapped into. So feel good, tick. We did that. But have fun, not so much. I did go to Bali this year and that was good, but it was also just like a massive step out of my comfort zone. So it was a lot of discomfort as well as fun. The coming year, I'm going to be really intentional about planning my vacations ahead of time. And that is something I really want to embrace in the new year. I want to make having fun not feel like something that I need to travel to Bali for. And I feel like I've said this for like honestly too long, but I just need to go on more little mini getaways, have more little mini adventures, and just live a little more. My next woe has been my Instagram growth. I feel like this year I have not grown at all on Instagram. I actually think I've lost followers. When I announced my engagement, that's when you lose the followers. And I think this goes back to what I was talking about before with my content. I feel like I've just had so many shoulds about how I should show up online. When it comes to Instagram, the content that I most enjoy posting are carousels. I love writing. I don't mind the occasional reel, like they are fun to film too, but I really enjoy writing. So I feel like in 2024, I just want to focus on posting like a ton of carousels. I don't know if that's gonna get me any engagement, but I feel like if I can just lean into a space where I actually feel good posting on Instagram, that will be good for me. And the last part of a yearly review is really just moving towards goal setting and what you want to change, what you want to focus on. I'm not doing my full goal setting process in this video because I am doing a plan with me that comes alongside the Life Map Premium Extended Edition. I'm going to have that link down below if you want to purchase it. It's definitely going to be not like this. It's not going to be anywhere near as personal or me focused. It'll be very much more you focused, and I'll be giving you strategies and mindsets and ideas on how to create change in your life in the next year, how to set your goals in a really intentional and structured way. But I'm going to go into some of the changes and things that I want to do in my life that are sort of top of mind right now without having done some super intentional goal planning. Right now, I'm leaning towards a yearly theme of calm, which is so random for me. I might try to think of something more sticky a little later. We'll see how we go. But this year, particularly towards the end of this year, I just feel like I have not been the calmest human being. And in a way, I think that I like that a little bit. Like I've had this realization, there is a part of me that just loves to be a little bit stressed and a little bit under pressure. But I also know that it's not super healthy for me. So next year, I want to focus on being a super calm content creator. And I feel like removing all of my shoulds is going to help me a lot with that. Another big focus next year is going to be my wedding, which is happening in May. We actually planned on eloping. That was always our plan. We've had like a 10-year long relationship, so we've had a lot of time to talk about this kind of thing. And originally we were like, yep, we're just gonna elope, me and you. And then we went to some weddings that were just so fun, and we were like, damn, this would be so nice to do, even though it is expensive. And then we decided we had to have a little mini micro wedding. So we have like 25, 30 people coming. Our general rule was like people that we've caught up with multiple times year of, unless they live like away, in which we can only catch up with them so often. But if they lived here, would we catch up with them multiple times? So far, wedding planning has been good. It's been a lot more stressful than I thought, which I think is probably part of why my next year's word is calm. I did hire a wedding planner, and a wedding planner is probably more equivalent to like a really top tier executive assistant that knows so much about the wedding industry, that has the contacts. But at the end of the day, you still have to make all of the decisions about your wedding, and your wedding planner isn't doing everything for you. Our wedding planner has already got us through some strife. We had a music festival that was planned on the day of our wedding at our previous venue. We only recently found out, and thank God our wedding planner knew someone who had just launched a beautiful new venue that we're actually more excited to be having the wedding at. But that was just a nightmare. She was about 3,000, maybe 3,500, which in the context of a wedding is actually quite inexpensive. Our wedding is like on the lower end when it comes to how much we're spending. So even that felt like a lot, but it's been invaluable. I'm continuing on my community era next year. I really just want to keep connecting and keep meeting new people and keep widening my community and my circle. I really would actually love to create a little monthly meetup. I want to call it like the Project Club or the Accountability Club. I'm hesitant to take it on because I know how much work it actually is to keep up those in-person little community groups. I don't necessarily want it to be like a my community thing. I want it to be open to like the whole community of the Gold Coast. I'm just really passionate about community and connection. I don't know when this started, but at some point this year I was like, I really care about building community, and not just for myself, but for everyone. I love the idea of designing like a city to be community focused, which just like hasn't been done where I live. I love the idea of third spaces. I just love the idea of connecting people. It really appeals to me, but I also know I need to be really careful with managing my energy, and committing to something like a monthly meetup sounds like nothing, but it's actually a lot, which I learned last year. I definitely am not committed to it in my head yet, but I want to do it eventually. Next year, I'm also going to have a big focus on saving money. I'm going to be in my money era. I'm going to learn how to invest at age 29. I actually have invested, but someone did it for me and I have no idea how it works, and I still feel clueless. But I'm going to become a finance queen next year. You guys watch. Maybe I'll make some content about it. We'll see. Mainly I want to do that because we are saving for our house. We already have like a pretty good deposit, but like I said in my vision board video, house prices have tripled where I live. So next year is just going to be saving for our humble abode We don't know if we are going to stay on the Gold Coast yet or if we're going to move more towards where Luke works, which is like an hour away. That's a while off, but I do love the Gold Coast. We'll see what happens. And lastly, off the top of my head, the next thing that I want to focus on is my mindset. Already this year, I've done so much mindset work, but I want to make it much more of like a, not a religious practice, but just like a, every single week I'm doing a little bit of mindset work here and there. I feel like mindset work has changed my life more than anything. And a few years ago, I didn't actually know what mindset work was. Like, I did not know how to manage my mind. I thought that I knew. I'd heard so many nice ideas about managing your mind, but I'd never actually done anything to rewire my brain. And this year I've definitely been more on like the neuroplasticity side versus the here's all these nice ideas about feeling good and feeling better. And that's something that I'm absolutely stoked to be able to stay. Whereas honestly, just like 2 years ago, I had feelings that I quite literally did not know how to handle. Like, I would have a big feeling and be like, there's just no way to move past or move through this feeling. It's too much for me. And while I'm definitely way past that point, and I'm so freaking stoked to be so far past that point, I still feel like there is room for me to continue sort of training my brain in ways that feel really good for me and just keep on making my life feel even better, because this year has just been such a good year that I'm like, damn, if I just keep on doing these things and I'm like really intentional about practicing them, I could feel even better and even more capable. If you liked this video, you're probably gonna like my video on happiness habits that I've implemented recently. I've talked a lot in this video about how I'm just feeling really good. And that video kind of encapsulates the things that I have been doing to get to this place. So if you're interested in that, I'll have that link down below. I appreciate you so much, and I'll see you soon.